This to Beam activates the first BEAD-funded broadband subscriber nationwide. Comcast and Appalachian Power continue their disagreement over utility poles. FCC greenlights the $40 billion EchoStar spectrum sale. SpaceX and Google pursue data centers in orbit. And NTIA launches a centralized hub for federal spectrum policy. Those stories and more on This Week in the Broadband Universe. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Craig Corbin. Nebraska-based This to Beam made history this week with the first BEAD-funded broadband service activation in the country. The household with activated service located near Ogallala, Nebraska, now has 800 megabits per second download and 200 megabits per second upload. This to Beam was awarded funding for 3 tower upgrades totaling more than $423,000 through the Nebraska Broadband Office. This to Beam was named 2025's Operator of the Year by WISPA, the Wireless Internet Service Providers Association. With drought conditions in many parts of the country, bipartisan legislation has been proposed to encourage data centers to invest in water reuse systems. Senators Ben Ray Lujan, Democrat of New Mexico, and Katie Britt, Republican of Alabama, have introduced a bill that would offer a 30% investment tax credit for data centers, manufacturers, and other water-intensive industrial companies if they build water reuse infrastructure. The Advancing Water Reuse Act would lessen local impacts of water-guzzling operations of data centers that can use up to 5 million gallons of water daily amid the race to power the artificial intelligence boom. Currently, 60% of the nation under drought conditions. Elsewhere, Comcast is looking to federal regulators to assist in the evolving dispute with Appalachian Power Company, with claims that the utility is slowing down broadband projects in Virginia. At issue, what Comcast says are unreasonable demands for pole attachment fees on utility poles owned and maintained by Appalachian Power. NTCA, the National Cable and Telecommunications Association, also calling on the FCC to intervene in a timely manner. At stake, BEAD-funded projects in much of rural Virginia. Federal Communications Commission has greenlighted the $40 billion sale of EchoStar spectrum to AT&T and SpaceX. EchoStar selling 50 megahertz of mid and low band spectrum to AT&T for $23 billion. SpaceX gaining 65 megahertz of spectrum to enhance Starlink's next-gen device-to-device service. In addition, the FCC is granting waivers for SpaceX to address convergence of wireless and satellite broadband with terrestrial, space-based, and hybrid network architectures. And speaking of SpaceX, talks underway with Google to launch orbital data centers. Google last year announcing plans to launch prototype satellites by 2027 as part of a moonshot initiative named Project Suncatcher. The speculative orbital data center technology has been central to SpaceX's investor proposal prior to its planned IPO this summer. NTIA this week announcing the launch of Spectrum.gov. That's a website that would consolidate resources for federal spectrum managers, policymakers, and others into a single location. The site will provide 6G pipeline progress and updates of federal spectrum policy. Last month, NTIA created the Space Launch Frequency Coordination Portal to speed federal spectrum request reviews. Netflix facing legal action by the state of Texas. The streaming company has been named in a lawsuit alleging that it spied on children, used dark patterns to increase user engagement, and that user data was collected and sold without consent. Texas says that Netflix falsely represented to consumers that it did not collect or share user data when it actually tracked and sold information on viewing habits to commercial data brokers and advertising technology companies to the tune of billions of dollars annually. London-based sports streaming company DAZN is making a $100 million bet on technology company ViewLift. The acquisition would enhance entry into the U.S. market for DAZN, which streams soccer, boxing, and basketball into more than 200 countries and territories. NFL games also available through NFL Game Pass. ViewLift provides technology for streaming service to 15 professional teams here in the U.S., along with 5 regional sports networks and clients in news and entertainment. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on This Week in the Broadband Universe.